Okay, let's get started. First, I'd like to ask everyone to mute yourselves, turn your cameras on if you have them off, and switch your view from gallery to speaker. If you're not sure how to do that, the team will add some directions in the chat box. So good morning again, and welcome to Alcohol, Cannabis, and Drugs, Oh My, an NJBIA HR program brought to you by Association Member Trust, Focus New Jersey Business Magazine, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, NJBIA HR Support Center, and Primepoint HRMS and Payroll. I'm Alice Gens, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer and CFO with NJBIA. And with us today is Judy Sailer of Primepoint HRMS and Payroll. For those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the largest statewide business association in the country, representing approximately 1 million jobs in the state of New Jersey, which amounts to about 1/4 of New Jersey's workforce, offering customer development opportunities, visibility through events, magazine ads, our podcast and TV shows, and money-saving discounts on things you're probably already paying for, like payroll, healthcare, 401k, and our new HR support center powered by Mineral HR. Before we get started, I'd like to show you a quick video on some of the new services NJBIA has been working on for you. You may have received an email from Mineral HR, NJBIA's HR partner, to log into the new and improved NJBIA HR Support Center, where you can find up-to-date employment laws, sample HR documents, and training videos. Our new HR Essentials combines the on-demand HR support with many digital training courses for your staff, including workplace harassment prevention. And in just a minute, we're going to show you a short video on this product. Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll move on unless we've got the video. Okay.
Your business is your passion, but running it gets harder every day because laws change and compliance tasks change. So many questions, so many answers, so many tools, so many documents, all over the place. Am I doing it right? Am I missing something? Change, worry, risk. It's constant. It's overwhelming. That's why you need the Mineral Platform, your single destination for all your HR and compliance needs. We take away the guesswork with a clear, concise assessment of your HR and compliance needs. Thousands of workplace compliance resources that are easy to find. A smart employee handbook builder that updates policy changes as they happen. Thoughtfully curated courses to address harassment and safety, and much more. All in one place. We're a team of trusted experts in your corner, ready to provide faster, accurate guidance with challenging HR or compliance questions, and most importantly, peace of mind. And powering the platform is Mineral Intelligence, delivering personalized recommendations based on your company profile and our expertise on your HR and compliance needs. When there's something you need to know or do, we'll bring it right to your attention before you ask. By combining the best of data, technology, and human expertise, the Mineral Platform is your essential foundation to a healthier organization and a more empowered you. Navigating HR and compliance is complex, and we will make it easier for you. Mineral, HR and compliance made simple.
Okay, thanks for that. If you're interested in any more information on any of our products, specifically this new HR Support Center or HR Essentials, I'll drop our website information in the chat along with my contact information. Feel free to be in touch, and we'd be happy to help you with any questions on these or any of our NJBIA services. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be emailed to you within a week, along with the PowerPoint, so be on the lookout for those. I'd also like to draw your attention to the chat box. Judy'd be happy to take your questions, so get them in as they come to you via the chat section. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Judy Sailer is the Director of Learning and Development for Primepoint HR and Payroll. She holds a master's degree in management and organizational leadership from Springfield College, received her human resources certificate from Rutgers University, and is a certified SHRM CP and PHR. She has presented for NJBIA, CCSNJ, NJACP, Tri-State SHRM, and Garden State SHRM, and has been featured in Forbes and New Jersey Matters. She is well-versed in all aspects of management and leadership, and her passion is staff development. So now, with further ado, please welcome Judy Sailer.
Hello, everyone. Give me just 1 second and we will get our party started. So today we're talking about the big three, alcohol, cannabis, and drugs. And if any of you have had to deal with this, you know that these policies can be difficult at times. The reason why, the big picture in and of itself, companies in the US lose $100 billion a year due to alcohol and drug use that impacts directly the workplace. Employees who engage in alcohol are 33% less productive. They use 3 times as many sick days. 65% of the workplace accidents are a result of an employee using drugs or alcohol. And that information is given to us by the Department of Labor, which to me is very telling, the information that's coming out. They're more likely to injure themselves and, of course, then have a workman's compensation claim. Not that someone who gets work should not have a workman's compensation claim. However, we need to be mindful of this and recognize that there is a problem. So what substances are people using these days? After recreational marijuana came to be, I honestly thought recreational marijuana would be the #1 hit, and it's not. Alcohol still is the #1 item that is used in the workplace, which I'm not sure why. You know, there is access. You know, I would have thought there was a shift because we just keep hearing about recreational marijuana in the workplace. And also, you know, in every news section, there's got to be something about it, it seems like. So for all of you, I'd like to take a little poll. What is the hardest thing about alcohol, cannabis, and drug policies that you feel? You know, is it, you know, do you need a policy for each one? Is it like, what makes it hard for you? If you look at the top of the screen, you'll see how to get to me. You can use either your cell phone or online. And once folks start to, there we go. So we need to get some answers in here, so this will populate. All right, so I'm not sure what's happening, but we're going to keep moving. Alcohol at this point is our starting piece. This was updated as of March 25th. 2.3 billion people in the world drink alcohol. Of those, 283 million adults have a diagnosed alcohol use disorder. That is very telling. If you think about, you know, how many people you have in your office or how many people that you supervise, there is clearly the opportunity for them to need some assistance or direction, shall we say. The American Addiction Centers does a survey every year. They look at about 70,000 people, and they found that 1 in 4 men admit to using alcohol in the workplace during the day. 1 in 5 women admit to using it. Now, how are they using it? We know, you know, the old stereotype of cocktails at lunch, you know, but is it that, or is it something else that we're talking about? So the negative effects of alcohol in the workplace are really what we have to start with before we start to build our policy. And, you know, think about it. Is someone sleepy or sleeping at work, or they could be a gamer? Are they tardy or not showing up? They could be a caregiver. And I do this a little tongue in cheek because we have to really think about, is this an alcohol problem? Is it a substance problem? Or is there something else there? You know, they have poor decision making, or they could just be a bad decision maker. Confrontational behavior with supervisor and coworkers, or they're just a confrontational in nature. We all know that one person in our staff team that, you know, starts off a little confrontational and then backs down to, you know, get to some sort of consensus. Sometimes that's just how a person is. Unintentionally injuries to oneself or others, or they're just clumsy. I have a very good friend who doesn't drink. She does, you know, nothing of a nefarious nature. She is clumsy and regularly, you know, falls, trips, drops things. You don't know. So, you know, how do you get to a point where you do know? You have to take steps to identify it in the workplace and see what is the actual issue that is going on. You know, does someone come in and appear to be intoxicated or hungover? They could just need coffee. We don't know yet. They could have a lack of coordination. Again, they could be clumsy. They have bloodshot or glossy looking eyes, or they have allergies. This has been the worst allergy season on record at this point. And if you looked at every single person who has red eyes and said, oh, they're doing drugs, you might be wrong, quite frankly. They have a slow pupil response. That's not something that, you know, I would necessarily have a snarky report to. They have the inability to complete work assignments, or they're on their cell phone. You know, we're seeing in the workplace, millennials and, you know, that lower tier Gen Xers by age on their cell phones a lot. TikTok is used all day long in the workplace, and it's not being used for work, that's for sure. Someone who may, you know, start to sweat heavily, you know, and a lot of times we have all been around folks where when that person starts to sweat heavily, you can smell alcohol, right? If they're having that much of it. They could slur their speech. They become nauseous or pale. This is one of those ones that is very important to myself. My father, who was a police officer and then a detective, as well as an officer in the Navy, at work one day, started to not feel quite right. One of the other officers thought he had been drinking. The HR person came down and said, you need to call an ambulance. He's having a diabetic emergency. You don't know what it is until a professional can tell you what it is. And so you have to be sure before you make those determinations. He was rushed to the hospital. He's fine. But at that point, we found out that he was a diabetic. We had not known up until then. So we have to be careful when we look at identifying in the workplace these items that we're not missing something that is even more deadly or problematic for an individual. Sorry. So in creating your policy, in the research I did for this, I was very surprised at some of the responses I found. The number one thing that several sources looked at was consider your company culture. For example, at Primepoint, during COVID, we had happy hours. We've had happy hours in the building. We have a holiday party here at the building, and there are adult beverages. So you have to look at, you know, are you a 100% you cannot do this, or is this something that occurs off hours, right? Is it a holiday party? Is it an event for something? Lots of the organizations that we support and lots of our clients, they have events, you know, and we're invited to those to attend as sponsors or you know, just as supporters of that organization. No matter what you choose to do, start with your legal counsel. Okay, that person, your legal team, is going to have to respond to whatever occurs. So make sure they are 100% behind what your policy says. If they disagree with it, you need to go back and write with them, because they're going to have to be in court managing this issue. With alcohol, and we'll get more into it, but you have to comply with the ADA. Alcoholism falls under ADA now, and we're going to look at that in a few minutes. You have to have the right level of insurance coverage. You have to look at what are the things that are pinch points that we need to have increased insurance for to protect the organization. And then you finally get to writing that policy. Okay. You want to make it bluntly clear what your stance is as an organization. Give them specific definitions, specific expectations, specific prohibitions. You have to provide education on all levels of your employees. And then what are your consequences? And this whole area, this whole presentation today, those consequences cannot be gray zones. If do for one, do for all in HR. If one person's caught doing something wrong and another person's caught doing something the same, those consequences are the same. You can't go softer on this person because they're a manager or this person's a supervisor. They have to match what the outcome is. Things to think about, right? So the technical assistance manual that came out from Title I of the ADA says a person who currently uses alcohol is not automatically denied protection simply because of the alcohol use. An alcoholic is a person with a disability under ADA and may be entitled to consideration of an accommodation. When we look at the three cases on the list, Birch versus Coca-Cola, Wallen versus Minnesota, Sutton versus United Airlines. Those folks all ended up with the ability to use ADA as a support. And that meant the organizations they worked for had to send them to rehabilitation of some sort. And so we need to look at what are we going to provide as a support after the fact, because you cannot, as we all know, terminate someone for an ADA issue. You have to work with them. They still have to be able to do the essential functions of the job. That does not negate that. And ultimately, if they cannot perform their duties, they can be terminated. But you have got to document before you try to discipline, discharge, or deny anything to an individual. Even though the courts may determine that alcoholism is covered disability, you still have the ability to prohibit use of alcohol in the workplace. If Primepoint decided tomorrow that we're no longer beginning having holiday parties, that's it. We're no longer going to have holiday parties. There would be no more alcohol in the building for whatever reason. You can require that employees not be under alcohol in the workplace. I know that sounds dumb. Why would I have to tell my employees that they cannot be under the influence of alcohol in the workplace? Because at this stage, we have to write it all out. And we have to be very clear with what people can and can't do. Okay. You can hold an employee with alcoholism to the same employment standards. If they can't do satisfactory performance or have the correct behavior in the workplace, you can then take action. Again, you have to document. And one set of documentation is not going to be enough. You need to have documentation, talk to the attorney, have documentation, talk to the attorney, have documentation. Once the attorney says, yes, you have enough to make action, then you can. It's a very, very difficult zone to be in with ADA and trying to remove somebody. So you have to show that you gave clear direction, that you've worked with them, that you've provided them the opportunities, and that they have still not been able to perform satisfactorily in their position. You may have to tolerate absences as an accommodation, and which doesn't jive with the rest of your employees. If you have another employee who is not an alcoholic, but they have several absences, you can write them up. You have to be very careful with alcoholism and an individual in writing them up for their absences. You can write them up. It's that next step of consequences that is the difficult. Now we get into cannabis, and we've been having a great year with it, right? By 2025, 6.1 million people will be using cannabis in the United States. I was at an event last Friday with a group of colleagues. Colleagues meaning I don't know them that well. There was, I don't know, maybe 25 folks at this networking event. And at a table of 8 people, I was the only person at the table who did not use edibles or marijuana of any sort. And I got up and left and went to another table because I just didn't know how to take that. I was shocked because I was with professionals and I had not even thought about the fact that, well, yeah, everybody can do it. It's fair game now, right? 320 million of recreational cannabis was sold from April 21st to December 31st. This came to us because Colorado balanced its state budget. And the goal with this is to those taxes that we're collecting as a state. The intent is to work on that budget, is to make the corrective actions to our budget. Now, is it going to work? Probably. They're looking at potentially $1 billion over the next 2 years for just marijuana sales and the taxes that are garnered from it. The negative effects of it in the workplace, it affects their depth perception. This is why the DOT is a complete no-fly zone for this. You cannot use any form, edible or otherwise, recreational or medical, and drive a tractor trailer or anything with a DOT requirement to it. It affects your reaction time. It affects your coordination. Those folks with alcohol that could be falling down? Yes, same thing here. No difference. It affects your motor skills. It does create sensory distortion. And not for nothing, everybody's got a little bit of sensory distortion between music and sounds of a machine and, the hum the air conditioner makes. We're all paying attention to all those things during the day. This amplifies it for a person. And that is very bad in the workplace in terms of your function, your coordination, your attention to detail and doing your job. 18% of adults employed full-time and nearly 21% of adults employed part-time have used cannabis during the previous year. They're doing it at work. They're doing it at work. You can't tell me they're not. We have to be very mindful of this fact and aware of, at any given time, someone could be under the influence of something. And we have to figure out what's our next steps after finding that out. Identifying cannabis in the workplace. There are very few opportunities right now that support this, and we're still seeing more come out. An employer can use the following in physical signs of evidence: a cognitive impairment test. I do have a document that I received from another organization that I will send to everybody with the PowerPoint, because some folks have really done a great job in starting to put together the pieces to be able to identify that impairment in advance of the whole wire concept being fully functional yet. A scientifically valid, objective, consistently repeatable, standardized, automated test of employees' impairment. We're talking about, drug testing and so forth. They are putting more and more standards onto the tests and the things that can be replicated over time. And then an ocular scan, which, financially, I'm not sure that everybody's going to run out and buy an ocular scan. However, there are more and more products coming to market that are going to be, much more affordable to entities. So it could happen soon. Creating that policy of marijuana. We have to abide by both state and federal laws. Federal law still says it's Title I, it's against the law. Talk to your legal counsel, because your legal counsel may say, nope, federal law says it's Title I and this is what we need to go with. Depending on your industry, you're going to have a different set of standards that will have to be followed, right? So for some, it's an absolute no-fly zone. For others, it's recreational. As long as you don't use it before work or use it during work, people may be allowed to use it. So we've got to see, where do we fall in that as an industry? We're a financial entity. We're a technology company here at Primepoint. It's a no-fly zone. It's just where it is. You can require that medical certification. If an individual comes in and says, I have been diagnosed with, fill in the list, PTSD, anxiety, whatever the case may be, I now have a card for recreational marijuana. HR needs to, 1, monitor that person. 2, be sure that that person is capable of doing the job that they have been hired to do. Think of all your safety standards. Think of all the other people that come in contact or that are affected by this person. And then, consider your company culture again. We know that there are many companies, clearly, if you drive down 206 or anywhere else, you will see Cureleaf. If you go to Barnegat, you'll see Cureleaf. There are physical companies that sell this product now, which is acceptable. And that is their culture also. It may not be yours, but it's theirs. So you have to think about, what is our culture? What is the age group of your folks? What is the behavior of your folks? Is it, we've always had that vision of cocktails at lunch. Well, is that something that this company culture might accept? It might be. You have to comply with ADA with this also. And that does require documentation. That is not oh yeah, I'm entitled to medical marijuana. Okay, well, I need a copy of your documentation. And I need, whatever needs to be provided so that the HR person goes, okay, yes, we know what we're doing with this person and here's what it is. And depending on your industry, your HR person may come back and say, based on this safety sensitive position this person holds, they need to be changed. They can't do that job based on our current policy or based on what our policy should be. We go back to, again, developing that written policy, definitions, expectation, define the prohibited behavior, education, consequences. And again, do for one, do for all. If Bob does it wrong and Jane does it wrong, they're both going to get the same set of consequences. They have to. If you don't, it's going to present other issues going forward. Because as we see this industry grow, it's going to be about us being consistent as managers and consistent as HR, and then, excuse me, providing the employee with the understanding of, here's where we're at, here's what our expectation is, and if they're not meeting that expectation, what are we going to do about it? So there are several protections specifically under medical marijuana that are not available under alcohol or other things. One is CREMA, we all know this, the Jake Honig Act, which was really about a young person being so ill and in so much pain that he needed that relief. So Jake Honig, I think, is kind of got, doesn't have as much legs to it in terms of what most of the folks around us in the workplace are going to be requesting the ability to have this for. And then NJLAD, NJLAD really looks at it, is this something that directly falls under ADA? Is it discriminatory? Okay. Someone with PTSD gets medical marijuana, but we don't respond correctly to that request for medical marijuana from that person giving us their documentation. That could be looked at as discriminatory if we don't. So we've got to look at those items. Employers cannot refuse to hire, discipline, or fire because of marijuana use. Okay. It's very difficult in some of these terms. Now, and there's new legislation that literally came out yesterday, and I'll get to that in a second. Employers can fire an employee who is under the influence of marijuana on the job. They're physically in your building and they show signs of it. You complete your evaluation. There's a wire at that point, we'll say, and that person will complete their investigation. You can terminate them. And we need to make sure that folks understand that. It's a much different world now in terms of what people can and can't do. CREMA, it does prohibit employers from taking any adverse action against an employee or applicant because the person does or doesn't smoke, vape, aerosolize, or use cannabis items, or if they test positive for cannabis metabolites. The cannabis metabolites, they stay in your system for quite a while. We know that. And, alcohol stays in your system for a while, depending on the last time you had your drink for whatever. So this is going to show up longer. I know there's I think it's the Halloween store is looking at moving into hair follicle testing because they're finding that when they're doing, the blood draw or other tests, it's not giving them a clear enough picture. There is room for, false information. So as soon as they started to shift to, if some of their stores started to shift into the hair follicle test, they saw a drop in employees because people start to talk, right? We all share information. We all share information with each other about how to get things right. Well, they're doing it too. The key provision of CREMA for the employee or employer, is that an employer to amend or repeal or affect, restrict, or preempt the rights and obligations of employers to maintain a drug or alcohol-free workplace, or require an employer to permit or accommodate the use. CREMA still stands that you, as the owner of a company or the manager or supervisor, can say this is a drug-free and alcohol-free workplace, period. We cannot hire people who show up positive. We have to be mindful of this because, and there's a long list of industries now that keep getting added to the drug and alcohol-free work zone. Check and see if you're on it because it's definitely an opportunity to kind of tie the bow around this on how to handle it within your organization. The drug and alcohol free does mean while on duty. So someone can't come to work with alcohol, right? You're not coming into work. I'm coming into work with coffee. We're not coming into work with anything other. So why would someone think they could come in with marijuana and do it in the parking lot? You can't. So some things to really think about. Is recreational marijuana legal in your state? Yes, for us. Define each state that you have offices in, because whatever the rules of that state are, is for that state. Yes, your main office could be in New Jersey. You still may have to abide by, Pennsylvania, New York, Delaware, based on where your offices are. Is your company required to be drug-free? If it is, put it in there if that works for you, and move forward. What is the actual language of the law in your state? Ours changed. We went from medical marijuana to now recreational. So there was a change there. Again, look at the other states that you may have offices in. Give very clear specifics on random drug tests, and make sure that random drug test is random. I still have clients that I'm counseling on. It has to be random. Well, Bob just keeps coming up. No. We all know what random is. Play Yahtzee, you'll figure that out. That's random, right? So we have to stick to and have a written, here's our policy, here's how people are drawn. Here, make sure it's very clear. And is somebody actually unable to perform their duties? And have a witness. Your best witness is your HR person. Bring them down to it and make them sit and stare at the person. You could do a Lean Six Sigma, draw a circle around a spot, put that HR person right in the middle, and let them watch whatever's going on, the floor, the activity, etc. Have them watch and be your witness, because when and if it goes to court, your legal counsel is going to call HR and say, I need you in there. You need to be the one to say, we gave out the rules, we gave out the definitions, we told what the consequences are, we were clear in what the expectations were. Here's the handbook, right? Those are the things that will help you with these types of issues. When you look at the United States, we are seeing more and more of the dark green, which is that legal for adult recreational use. I feel like every month something else pops up that is starting to shift us more and more into this. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you, look at the map. It's very clear. So now we move into drugs. More than 70% of those abusing illicit drugs in America are employed. That's an enormous number. And that doesn't mean, one thing or another. If you look at the photo, there's lots of different items that are listed as drugs, of course. But we have to be mindful of what is that going to mean for us. Well, sorry, we have a question. What type of training would an HR person need to assess if someone is under the influence? Are there legal ramifications for the HR person? The training that I have seen, a lot of it is coming from SAM, HSA, and we're going to look at them in a little bit, as well as there was a second organization I found, and they're the only two places that I found training that could be provided for a wire. And the wire is that trained professional person that in the very beginning was discussed that the state police were going to train wires to identify and assess and so forth if someone was under the influence. That hasn't come to full fruition yet. They're still working on that whole concept. There are pieces to it that are in, but which some of these documents that I have that I will share with folks are part of. But there are always ramifications for HR, not going to lie. Now, that being said, document, stick to your policy, create your policy with the steps I've given. That is going to be the thing that's going to help you the most when it comes to dealing with assessing someone or if you find someone who's under the influence. Identifying drugs in the workplace. There has always been blood tests, quite frankly, a breathalyzer of some sort, the hair test, saliva, and the urine test. We see the urine test a lot right now with clients. It's kind of the easiest one to get through rather quickly when it comes to how many employees you might have to test at any given time. The negative effects on the workplace, absenteeism is the biggest. And we all know, especially the HR folks, that if you don't have employees coming in that are able to do the jobs that they're supposed to be doing, your work product doesn't keep moving forward. You know, and we all know, be out sick for 2 days out of your office. And by the time you get back, all heck is breaking loose because you weren't there for 2 days. And it's not your fault, you were sick. But think about now, you know, your workforce have a rolling 2-day out kind of thing. It becomes very difficult to function as an organization. So, you know, accidents, healthcare, big issue with healthcare right now. And we're going to look at that. Lost productivity. There, you know, if you're supposed to be providing a product at a certain stage and you can't because you're missing 2 or 3 people in that, your productivity drops. And that is not something that we really can function with as a business. If we had a problem here at Primepoint and we stopped sending people their payroll checks, I think they would notice that that was a problem. And that'll never happen. Trust me, especially with our teams. Creating that drug policy. Okay, again, abiding by both state and federal law, because drugs isn't just illicit drugs. Drugs can be any type of drugs, blood pressure medication, pain medication, you know, muscle relaxers. You have to think about, this isn't just someone's doing, you know, fentanyl, marijuana, or otherwise. Someone could be having a problem with oxycodone. And we've seen that. We've all seen it in, if not in our, you know, work lives, on TV and otherwise. So think about the controlled substance version. I'm not embarrassed to say, when I was a kid, I can remember that, you know, if you went and had teeth work done or had teeth pulled, they gave you, I don't know, a half a bottle to a full bottle of oxycodone of some sort. And now they give you like 2 or 3. And why? Because we've realized that humans get addicted to these things, and because they're looking to reduce pain, and so they keep taking it. That's a drug still. So it falls under that category. It's just not, it doesn't start as an illicit drug. It can become that illicit drug. Again, talk to your legal counsel. I can't say that enough. I probably should have been an attorney in another life. There are so many things that you need to call your legal counsel for, and we don't call them because we think, oh, we can handle this. This is fine. Here's the policy. Legal counsel is the one who's going to have to sit there and argue this point in court. So let them be in the room, make them be in the room. I know it's going to cost you money. I serve on the board out of my town. I can't stand it when I have to pay extra money to the legal counsel to come in, but anytime they come in, they come with facts and information, and they save us in the long run by giving us the correct information, by giving us the, here's the standard, here's my recommendation moments. It's worth it, its weight in gold. You have to comply with ADA. If I have a tooth problem, if I have some other, I have pain, right? So, you know, you have pain, you have an injury from, you know, some activity that you did. I can't say to you, no, you can't take pain relief. But I can say, if you're going to be on these painkillers, we're going to have to put you on light duty, or we're going to have to shift you to another position that maybe the position that they're in is not one that they should be physically doing, because when you take pain relievers or those kind of things, and I'm not talking Advil or aspirin, when you're taking something along those lines, you are under ADA because now you're under treatment by a doctor, and we don't want you to get hurt because your reactions are just not as good at that moment. Again, have the right level of insurance. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to clients who, you know, have something go on and they say, oh, well, you know, we don't have an extra rider, or we don't have this, or we don't have that. And, you know, I think to myself, you're going to be paying for this out of your pocket. Like, go back and talk to your insurance people and make sure you have the right thing. I can't tell you what the right thing is. I am not an insurance provider. What if they refuse to do the modified job while on RX pain meds? What's your policy? That's my first question. If you have a policy that says while someone's, you know, on medication, on otherwise, etc., what is that? Second, can you say to them, we need a doctor's note that says you can still continue to do the satisfactory level of work on your job based on what that job is. And that means HR needs to send the notice to the doctor that says, here's what this person's job responsibilities are. Should they be allowed to fill in the blank? I have a wonderful spouse. He works for UPS. He twisted his ankle. The doctor put him on muscle relaxers. And it just so happened that I ended up having to see his manager because we ended up having to go to the emergency room because he hurt his ankle that badly. And the two of them are having a conversation. And I said, whoa, he can't drive a truck, because that's what he did for a living at that point. He was driving a truck all the time. And I said, you need to go get that doctor back in here and get a note, because you can't drive that truck. And of course, I was the nosy wife. However, I'm aware of these things. So get the doctor to give you some sort of documentation. And if the doctor won't give you documentation, then the person has to either be put out on light duty or, told that they need to be on leave while they're recovering from something, because you can't risk other people in the building being hurt because this person's on muscle relaxers or some level of pain medication that is that far off. Again, we're sticking to what are the definitions? What are the expectations? What is the prohibited behavior? What's the education we're going to give somebody? Okay. And then the consequences. And we're sticking to what the consequences are. Oh, now I lost my page. So things to think about. Employers can still have a drug-free workplace. You can have a drug-free workplace. There are other things that you can also do to help you have a drug-free workplace. There is no exception necessarily for safety sensitive positions, meaning that they can't be carved out. If it's a drug-free workplace, it's a drug-free workplace. You can also use, and I've seen it used, is the Smoke-Free Air Act. If your building or your company property is a smoke-free location, then they can't smoke on your property. They can't go out in the parking lot and smoke on your property, okay? And I have never seen a prescription for alcohol. As many times as I have joked about it, the doctor said I should have 2 cocktails and call it a day. There is no alcohol prescription out there that I've ever seen. If you've seen one, send it to me, because I'd be shocked. So all 3 of these, what are the differences that you see between the different policies? Are there ones that are going to need a different level? And I'm just asking you to think about this because I think I'm having a problem with this and we're not going to waste time. But what are the differences that you might see? Marijuana's got a very specific carve out. Alcohol doesn't. It is what it is. So the Omnibus Transportation Employee Testing Act is the one that covers the DOT and the DOD. You may be covered under it peripherally. And if you are, you can use that as an option. Do you have vehicles? Do you entrust those vehicles to employees to drive, to take materials somewhere, to, take people somewhere? What is it that your organization has? All right. The other transportation industries one, I've seen folks kind of attach to that and be able to at least use the protections of it with employees and looking at the regulations. Anybody who works with the DOD, if you get funding from the federal government, you can fall under this and you can be safety sensitive and not allow alcohol, drugs, or anything in your organization, because the federal government still sees those things as illegal. So why do you need to act? For the company, accidents, your replacement cost of assets, lost time at work, workman's comp claims, insurance, right? Our insurance costs go up every year as it is. They're going to go up more as some of these folks keep rolling in. For the employees, their absenteeism and their healthcare costs. We can't, as organizations, keep keeping our healthcare costs low, if you keep having these issues that roll in, eventually your premiums are going to go up. There's nothing you can do about that. And they're going to go up more with these types of issues. If we were in a first aid kind of situation, the thing I would tell you to do is survey the scene. Is there a change in someone's behavior? Are they acting differently? Are they frustrated? Now, not for nothing, everyone's had a lot of stress since 2020. So you have to be mindful of that too. But when you start to see someone who's having a behavior change and then you start to see their performance fall, no matter what it is, you need to go in and get involved in there and ask what's going on. And if you can't, then your HR person should, or a manager should, who can speak to them. Okay. Manager training. This is where the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration group comes from. This, I spent days and probably weeks looking through this website. It's phenomenal. It has trainings, it has information, it has, best practices. It's great. When you need to train your managers, their steps were to know the organization's policies and programs. That should be drilled into your managers or supervisors' minds. Be aware of the legally sensitive areas, right? Medical marijuana versus recreational marijuana. Recognize the potential problems. Document, act on it. Go to this website. You will not be disappointed with the materials that you find. With employee education, I will tell you folks, there was a little bit more laxed on this, which I was disappointed in. Provide the materials, make sure that they understand what your expectations are, make sure they have the personnel policy, provide the general health promotion information on topics. You can get all of that from that SAM HSA site. When it comes to employee assistance, there are a variety of different types of programs. You would be required to offer something to an individual who wants to go into recovery. Now, sometimes that's held by your health plan. Sometimes it's not. So you have to go back and look at what options are there and who do we need to talk to about having that available for our employees. To test or not to test is always the question. To start with, you can do it, again, after conditional offers made. You can comply with federal law, zero tolerance. You do need to be mindful of ADA. These are all standard steps that HR has to follow and knows that they have to subscribe to. If you have reasonable suspicion, if it's a fitness for duty test, someone comes back from being out, and you can specifically retest someone when they come back from rehab of any different type of program. That's going to matter. And the annual physical tests and this post-treatment test are just coming into play on that SAM HSA site. I was very pleased to see it. And at the same time, I was a little surprised that we finally got to this. The newest item that came out just yesterday, the New Jersey courts determined that the CREMA rule does not allow a private citizen to sue an authority. So Zantic versus Walmart, Zantic had applied for a position. He was going to be part of the asset protection department. He popped positive on his drug test. His offer of a position was rescinded. So he sued. He sued Walmart over that, saying that they violated CREMA. And the district court came back and said, no, an individual does not have the right to sue based on CREMA. That should be the Cannabis Regulatory Commission who takes action on it, not the individual. And that's big, because what has been queued up, there's about 15 different cases behind this of individuals who are trying to use CREMA to get a position back or to get a position that they had been offered and then rescinded because they tested positive. All of that is going to be wiped out. They did talk about, Judge Christine talked about the fact that the language is not completely clear in CREMA, that they need to go back and revisit it and define specifically who is allowed to sue who and who the authority is on that. The Partnership for a Drug-Free New Jersey provides education to employees on the issue of marijuana, alcohol, and other drugs. Free of charge. Thank you, Bill. Free is wonderful. There are companies now, and you're going to find this fascinating, that can test for just about everything and this is an example. I do not know these people. I researched a bunch of them to see which one I had, gave us enough information on. Premium Biotech can test for everything. And I know out west, what they started with was they transitioned some of the police to a medical van. They put a nurse on that medical van. If you get pulled over for the potential for intoxication, that van's going to come to you and take your blood. They're going to get I lost the word. They're going to contact the judge and get permission to take your blood right then and there. We don't have that yet, and I don't see us getting that. However, these new products are starting to be able to test for these things that we couldn't test for before. And so, this is just one of them. There were about, 8 or 10 I looked at. I just picked the one that I thought gave more than enough information about what they had an option for. Celebrations at work. I did touch on this. Be honest with employees. If you are going to have an event, be very clear with everybody what the rules are. Okay. Post your policies if you have to. Remind everybody prior to the event if you need to. If you can't do it, reinvent the party concept. Go somewhere else. Do something else. Take them to an amusement park. Take them to something fun, something that is not alcohol related, if that is your decision as a company. The personnel policy, your best practices are going to boil down to educate yourself. This area, for me, I feel like it changes daily with new information constantly coming out. So, which is why I did the presentation, and last night I was reading all of the court information that just came out to put it into this presentation. Get your leadership involved. They cannot avoid this subject. And some leaders do that because they go, oh, they'll have it. HR's got it, or the managers have it. Get them involved in it. Create the policy. Require every staff person to sign off on it. And as much as we're a technology company, and I really like having, sending out documents electronically and someone signing those documents electronically, make them sign it. Don't let them put in that typed name, because some of those things make me nervous as HR. And I might even drop back to going to paper when it comes to this, because if we ever have to go to court over you, I want to be able to hand the judge that document that says, here's what they signed, and this is what we agreed to, and this is the consequences for their actions. Be prepared for disclosure. People are going to come in, people are going to start to come in more, and because there are websites that will help you get a medical marijuana card for about $200. Google it. I did. I was a little discouraged by it. Know who people are talking to. And it's a doctor's group that is literally signing off on everything, and everybody's got anxiety now. Train your managers to address and document suspected use. They don't have to be the final documentation. They should, if they see something, have the first document, go to HR, talk to HR, have the first documentation, then HR is going to step in to help them. Okay. And be consistent. You can't do for one, not do for the others. You have to do for everybody. And that's hard. I know, because some employees you really want to save, and others you really would wish they would go somewhere else. So that is our presentation for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I was able to get SHRM credits for those of you that are HR folks. So the code is up there for you when needed. And we will be sending out the PowerPoint, and I'll be sending out the document for the evaluation of someone who we believe is under the influence.
Okay, thanks so much, Judy. Great presentation. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're right about at time at this point. Our next HR event will be in September, so we hope everyone has a great summer. September 12th, and it will be in person. The topic will be managing employee leaves and absence and understanding income replacement benefits with Mike Shadyac. So I hope you guys can join us in person for that. And so for NJBIA and Judy Sailer from Primepoint HRMS and Payroll, have a great rest of your morning. And thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.